Slick, we met with Slick today. They're opening they want to be offering classes next fall
Oh, wow.
out there.
So
So
Like fall 2022?
fall of
fall of
23.
2023. Yep, fall of
Okay.
2023. So here's just I'm just gonna put them here. You guys, it's awesome. It shows what they're doing, the classrooms and everything. Awesome. Just so excited. It's gonna be a huge asset. Kind of the idea is 2 years Salt Lake and then 2 years into the U, so you can almost get a full bachelor program right in our backyard, which is.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay. Sorry, let me get my agenda.
And their focus here is likely going to be in the IT realm.
It's cheap, close.
That makes sense.
Awesome.
But we-
The real Utah Polytechnic University.
Oh, stop it.
So we did mention, Nathan brought up a lot of good ideas about doing this semester. Okay, we're going live. I'm gonna stop talking. Thank you. Okay, we'll get back on track with our work meeting. Finish up with item 2.3. I think we'll jump into the auto mall at this point. I'm okay leading out on this if you're okay, Chase. Great, I think we made a lot of progress this week. We met with, what got me kind of over the top and excited fun is we met with the two end users. We met with Travis and we met with Colby Hansen. And both are excited, they're willing to come. Colby wants to be selling cars by January 1st. That's his vision, is selling cars by January 1. I'm guessing Travis has a similar vision.
And we should say we have a conditional use permit in for the first one already, just north of Garage Grill.
So I think we're there. The thing I've been asked to come to council with and look for opinions, let me get to my notes with feedback. Okay, 3 areas I guess we could talk about. One is the park space. Let me start with what I think is, there's a little 7-acre park that's been kind of discussed. There's kind of some talk now about.
Where this came from, just so you know,
Okay,
is there's no parks in that entire developed area.
right,
The only one is
There's like
further this
Arches.
way, Arches, right? That's it.
right,
You have all that density and zero open space.
right.
So that's where I pretty much insist on go drive through those neighborhoods. Like in the summer when kids are out there playing, it is impossible to not worry about hitting people.
Right.
The driveways are shorter. It was before those standards were changed. The roads, it's just, there is nowhere for those kids to go. My wife, who works at the middle school over there, will tell you, and talk to the officers who work in the schools, they have nowhere to go but hang out in the in-between areas and cause problems.
Right.
Constantly. It's drugs and sex and, it's nuts, the stuff that's going on with it, because they have nowhere to go. There's no pressure release.
Right.
So apparently what happened before any of us were here, including me, is all that open space was given away to either the density or Walmart or whatever it was. So said, look, when we're looking through this stuff, that was one part that's just barely off of the trail, etc. You've gotta have some open space. We simply have to. The city owns it, right?
Yep.
It makes sense to have open space there. You can look at a number of different, just about any newly constructed commercial area with that interface with the trail, etc., has space like that. South Jordan's done it in almost every single one that they have. So the idea that it doesn't fit is crazy to me. A park fits anywhere, and that is a great place for it. Right next to a lot of the high density where they need somewhere to go to do something that's connected with the trail, etc. So unless we're gonna have some other place for that pressure release to go, I cannot in good conscience give away even more of the park space that was supposed to be there. This idea of 20% open space does not exist in that area, not even close.
Do we want that? I agree we need park space, location crossing Main Street. That's gonna be a high traffic area. It already is it's a speed zone right now. You can drive that because there's no development, right? It's a straight road.
There's a lot of officers on there though.
Yeah. But I'm just concerned about I guess it could go on the trail system under the road.
Right.
So there's that access point, which is good. And if we have plenty of parking, would be good. So there's some of those hurdles we have to make sure and check the box on to make it safe.
Okay.
No, I agree, I don't, we've done too much giving away stuff like that for.
Are they asking
the
for
questions.
something on that?
Just commercial, they would like to just continue some commercial, it's kind of in a weird, the place, the reason it was designated that was because there's some weird plumbing under, creating like some weird.
There's some drainages.
Drainage, it's in between two drainages essentially. That's the area.
That's it, I mean, I didn't get a sense that this
Right
is
They'd have to pipe it. They'd have to pipe the one, they wouldn't
How-
pipe Midas Creek.
How large is this part?
7 acres.
Five.
It's closer to
Five.
How's the topo on it? Are we gonna,
It's down in a kind of a
Yeah,
basin.
we'd have to do some fill and.
is there any programmable space?
You'd have to
Acid.
do some work to get it there, and then that would require a bunch of FEMA work because it's all floodplain, because that's where Copper Creek and Midas Creek converge.
Pickleball courts, anything substantial or no? Is that,
I couldn't hear that question.
Pickleball,
I think you could get
You
something.
probably could do.
What about
pickleball.
that golf thing, frisbee golf?
No.
no, you'd have to do that whole trail system probably down that.
In the dealership.
if you drive by it, it's right where the bridge is, right now, the bridge looks like
Right.
it's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's right on there.
It is an odd spot.
And that's my, I mean, that's because I don't wanna just do open space for the sake of saying open space, you know, I get what, you know me, I've been a proponent of this, so.
Same, it can be whatever you want it to be, but, I mean, seriously, go drive through there and see the problem, talk to the people in the schools, I mean, it is insane.
It would be a good location for a trailhead. I don't know that I would put a playground or a destination type thing there,
Right.
because the destination is.
I don't think you want a playground there, cause I worry about kids, won't go on the trail system, they'll run across Main Street. Little kids, I think. I worry
Yeah,
about
depends
that.
on how we set it up.
Is
Yeah,
there
I'm not
anything up
worried
by
about
the
it.
school or by the church or any open land there?
Copper Mountain.
Yeah, or even
It
the
is all-
bastion?
It's off.
It's all still.
Yeah.
It's soil on it.
Unless you wanna
Stick a
pay
tent in it.
$500.
Well, we have talked about that, we have talked about possibly working out something, a better use down on the garden plot.
Which we don't know.
What's the distance of travel?
But if he's asking, but
It's in
he
the same neighborhoods.
owns it.
It's quite a ways from
Yeah, it's,
the
I mean,
trail.
for the trail,
Or the
yeah.
But we are putting a
contaminated
trail
property.
down the west side of Pyramid Main Street, to Main Street, and
So the request really today was just tell me one way or the other if I should include it in planning or if I should plan around it.
And I'm okay either way, like I said, I'm not coming with, I'm just upfront with these, I'm not trying to sway anybody either way, I'm just.
If a swap's on and it can be, you know, you get better park space over there, but I really doubt that he'd do that.
And I don't know that that's better than this location anyways, to be honest, I don't.
But really, I mean, really, we didn't talk about doing anything specific about program or anything, just simply that there's gotta be some space for that pressure to go. Cause right now they're just causing problems in parking lots and in dark places behind the schools that aren't completely inaccessible. I know the schools call all the time, wanting us to go check out what's going on behind this area or that area. There's just nowhere for any of them to go. There's so many apartments, there's so many townhouses, there's so much density over there and seriously no space to even just hang out.
have you heard anything lately from Big Shep, BAI on that? No, you just.
We're working on amending the development agreement because they're doing some more, they got more UDOT property, so they're gonna add some more property to be dedicated to the city right along Mountain View, but other than that, that's all gonna be deeded to us, but it's coming unimproved, so there's something we can do there.
Talking about streets that's across Mountain View.
Okay, so I think we got guidance there, okay. So I think guidance, we'll just look at maybe some
Some
teenage options there, geared towards teens, okay. Okay, next one on there is north of Miller Crossing, where Miller Crossing Boulevard would be. They're wondering if we're open to other uses like flex space. Or if we're, is that part of the auto mall?
So it's all auto mall zoning right now, so it's that where the
Can you
road comes
bring this up?
across.
So we can-
John, can you just bring up a map of the auto mall area?
Bring up the
Like a Google
current
Earth.
zoning map.
I can broadcast, but can I just,
Should you make a
if I plug in with my
project?
computer, it'll never show up there. It'll take us 30 minutes to get it to do something.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of topo down there, right? Anyways, just
You know, the bike park option.
dirt.
For the parkour course, like obstacle course.
Or you can do
Excuse
one
me?
that are multi-use skateboard bicycles that aren't dirt bikes.
I was just curious.
It
I
gives
didn't-
more options. Kids that don't have time to stress.
You're talking motorized bikes.
Like a
I just-
skate parky thing,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
a little bit different.
You could even do it multi-use, like designated, like some days
Oh,
it
yeah.
could be motorized.
Shades of red.
I don't know.
Which map is this?
It's the zoning map.
This'll work.
Yeah, right there.
We're talking about the road that goes like this, and then there's the creek right here, the park area we're discussing right here. So it's this parcel, this land in between where the road is and the Midas Creek is all automall zone right now. What they would like to do is in the MDA shift that to more, something akin to closer to a C2, but not exactly a C2. So we've talked about flex space. We've removed things such as the civic uses like churches or service clubs, those things, so that there would be more of that commercial space.
But not really tax generating, right? Not necessarily.
Well, be commercial property, so it might be business center, so flex space.
But not a lot of sales tax.
It is not, no, he's talking not sales tax on that part, again, north of Miller Crossing.
And I'll tell you where this comes from, I don't think, talking to Travis and Colby, I do not get the impression that it will be years, I think, before we could have enough dealerships to fill up that whole. I truly.
Of course it will be,
The years is okay.
but yeah, for us, that's fine.
I
And-
just don't want it to
And
be.
honestly, I don't know, based on talking on our conversation, that 8 dealerships that can have 300 cars is exactly beneficial. Like, there's no difference between a lot with 600 cars and two dealerships with 300 cars, right? So one of the things that they were making the case for is having one large, gorgeous amenity building and then a larger area of cars. And that would mean 4 or 5 dealerships instead of 8.
That's what Colby said, I didn't get that impression from Travis.
Yeah, there's kind of two different visions.
Yeah, what's lacking is a plan. Right, what was presented to us, back in September, October, I forget exactly when, with this used car idea is, look, it's gonna be years before the legislature changes the radius thing.
Right.
But we do think it will change eventually. So instead of putting up these, putting up crappy used car things, that will be difficult to turn into new car later, his vision, what he sold us on was bumper to bumper, that area, right? Would be basically set up more like new car lots. And he would have them
Like
specific
brand
for
specific.
brand specific
Yeah.
or use specific, et cetera.
I think.
And now that it's coming back to us, I'm a little frustrated that that's no longer the vision or even a plan to go with that. It's piecemeal of, okay, well, we're just gonna do this little building and get started, and now we got this Colby Hansen coming in, gonna do RVs on the next part instead or something.
No, not now.
I mean, like, to me, that's where my frustration with this whole thing is, wait a second, we said we're willing to kind of look at going down this road with looking at the potential to turn these into new later. That was the concept that we were sold on, and now you're coming in with anything but that.
But see, that's the thing is I'm not, based on the information we received more recently, I'm not sure that a new car dealership would be interested in taking over a building that didn't have its own service thing attached to it, right? Like, you'd need to have it all built up. Some of these, we were saying some of these places are 94,000 square feet buildings to get a new
Whatever the building
new
is,
dealership.
I
And
totally agree.
What I'm saying is that the model where they build all these
shell.
used things and then new would come in, that'll never happen.
So my question is, what is the plan? Right? Because we're going down the road of just piecemeal. instead of an actual master
Jerry, to a
plan.
point though, I don't think they can give us the entire, they don't know. They need a couple in there, built right, to prove the model. I don't think they'll ever get.
I guess that's my
That
question,
used
to prove
model.
what model?
To
So
prove
if
that
that's-
model.
So if that's not the plan anymore, bring me a plan.
They have, and that's what I'm saying, that's what they
They
showed
haven't,
today.
they haven't, to me, the list of items to get this one thing going is the plan. What's the end goal? What does this look like when it is built out in 10 years or 20 years or whatever it takes? Cause that's what we're in it for. I get that they wanna just get a toehold, but what is our long-term plan and how do we write it to make sure that that long-term vision comes to plan? And I've said a million times, I don't think that they're capable of that. So what is our long-term vision? What is our plan for it?
If
Is
I,
one of the question I would pose.
if I think about flex space, it's like, this is like the only piece, well, the corner of 134th too, but we have very little frontage on any kind of a main road, right? And this is our frontage, and so if we're gonna generate sales tax revenue, it's gonna have to be on something that has, it's a main thoroughfare.
I'll
Right.
tell you what,
And so if you're gonna do flex space, put it on the contaminated soil thing, or, I mean, something like that, but don't put it on the only place that people see it as they drive by down Mountain View corridor, that's gonna be a freeway at some point.
I just spent 4 or 5 days in Round Rock, Texas, which is a suburb of Austin. Their freeway system right there, and there was I-35 is like the main, I forget the directions because there's no mountains. It's all flat, all you can see is water towers in the distance.
35 goes north and south.
Right, but I-35, okay, and then there was one that crossed the other way.
40.
And they were set up just like Mountain View. They had one-way frontage roads, right, and the freeways in the middle. And on every one of those, to get to our hotel and to the fields, we went all over. I mean, those frontage roads were completely lined with commercial on every direction, and we're kind of like we are here to proximity to Salt Lake City, right? I mean, who was out there?
The whole
It
state
was
of
Michael.
Texas is
People
full
who
of
weren't
frontage
there.
roads that are completely lined with commercial. That's every city in Texas.
Right, but that's, my point is, Utahns aren't used to that. What we've gotten from developers before is, oh, well, nobody wants to be in the middle of those things. They wanna be where there's
And on and off ramp.
an on and off. BS. Because it's freeway frontage. So again, this is our only piece. Olympia Hills, there will be nothing there, right? So I guess I'm saying, we need to really think about this. I know they're looking at it of what can we do right now, right? That's what a developer will always look at, is what can I make money on right now? That's not the investment that we've made as a city, so I don't have the answer. But I'm saying that's what our conversation needs to be, not clearing the deck to pass whatever it is they wanna do next. It's what is the plan, right? And then, yeah, let's make a list of how we get there, but I don't see a comprehensive plan, right? Every time, every meeting, we're asking for something else and something else and something else. I'm like, what are we doing?
Jared, let me add one comment to that. The original vision of 8 car dealerships, blah, blah, blah. If that's going to change, okay, make the case that it should be changed. But I still, kind of listening to both your comments, would add in my comment to that too. If it's going to change, I want it to change to another tax generating thing, a sales tax generating thing, not a flex base, not a
Cause that's a
Service
great
thing,
point,
something
those
like that.
can
I want
go
it
in
to
so many
be
other places.
tax generating, right? Even the car wash, which is gonna be awesome, that's really needed,
Well,
right?
you say
But
you
things are
can
good.
say a hotel,
but it's not
that
a
would be a great
sales
place for a
tax
hotel,
generator,
but maybe not for several years, but it will be. And if we build something else there, guess
Yeah,
what? That goes to South Jordan and Riverton, just like everything else.
And, yeah, I would say that the challenge is I don't know that the vision that we have for this property is conducive to cash flow generation for the developer of the property right now.
Right.
But that's not.
But the only way to develop that, the only way to produce the cash is sell it to the people who are gonna develop something
Right.
there, right?
Yeah.
And that's, when we were sold this originally, it was for that purpose, right? This is the only, we're trying to preserve at least one spot on what will be a major freeway. Like, this is our only chance to capture it, We wanna preserve it, and that's why we designated all auto mall, and then the council controls it. And this stuff that's being suggested won't happen. Like, that's what we bought,
it was really restricted to automobile,
for that
precisely
specific purpose, right? That this stuff can't happen, we can control the long-term trajectory of this. And the developer knew that as well. Their profitability really isn't our concern. If that's not what they do, there are others they should sell to whose it is. This is what we set out to do.
So clarify a couple things for me. The proposals are coming from the developer or the end user at this point from your meeting? Like, I'm assuming these gentlemen are gonna buy certain pods and develop those pods, and they're not developing the whole thing yet.
That's right.
Okay, so then the developer's saying, hey, I want some flex space on the northern side.
I'm thinking now, hearing from them, from the end users, that there probably isn't the viability with that law in place.
Yeah.
I think that law changed everything, and now, and then COVID has changed more as far as car buying habits, and so I think,
But they also said that there are underperforming new car dealerships in the areas that could be moved here because of the demand will be higher here.
Yeah,
And
And so,
almost
so
any-
one of, and I don't wanna get into specifics, but one of them had proposed that they wanna start with used car dealership, but they wanna build this magnificent building, I mean, really nice service area, the whole shebang, I mean, really, with the idea that it would be a destination for a GM dealership that
Would
they
they
have
spec
an
into
ownership.
that, would they spec into those requirements?
That's kind of what the vision is, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the-
And I'd be
To say,
okay
say
with
it would be the place where the GM dealership that he already owns could move to,
Well,
if that makes sense.
Both the end users we spoke to, if you don't mind me, they both said, well, we want something in there to make sure that our investment is protected. If we go and put in a building like this in 10 years, how do we make sure that it stays up? And so that's something we can talk about in the MDA is how do you make sure that there's a refreshing that happens? It's interesting, they're really two different versions of what this model will look like, but they both said you have to prove it first in order to get some of this other stuff going. They think, they both were confident that within a few months, one may have said, within a year, you're hitting this number of cars a month and it's easy to do. But they've said you're not gonna get a new dealer to consider, especially underperforming, until they see, wow, that demand out there is there.
It's like take the leap, have you seen Garage Grill, you know what the wait time is over there, it's like, well, I'm glad somebody finally
Yeah,
took
we've
the
Well,
tried
leap.
to
go
be
several
honest with you,
times and-
that has convinced
multiple other businesses.
the end user on,
Yeah,
one of the
end
potential end
users.
users to say, we get it, we're in.
And-
Like, they wanna go now, they wanna be,
Yeah.
you know, breaking dirt in the summer.
Here's another-
Sorry, I was gonna say, from the plan thing, it sounds like you guys have had a presentation that none of the rest of us had.
and that's what we're
I
trying to
want, I wanna
present,
know
right?
what the plan is, right? And if their plan is short of what ours is, like, we need to have that conversation with them, because I don't think it's fair of us to continue kind of going down this weekly meeting path of, okay, well, yeah, continue spending money and time and things on these little things when we haven't really agreed to the overall.
I don't think individually that the presentations made by either of the two potential end users is in conflict with the original idea that was presented to us of creating a really high-end auto campus with buildings that potentially could be converted into new cars down the road. They were both committed to the idea of this needs to have an agreement in the MDA that the design guidelines require the buildings to be nice.
I would like
They
to
wanted to make
hear
sure that in 10 years that these would have to be
that's what they said.
renewed, that they would have to be
No,
updated.
He wants
to have a
I would
meeting.
like to
Lighting
hear
council
that.
here. Here's another issue, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but a concern to me, cause to me we're talking about two different issues. We're talking about some dealerships that want to come in here, be it used car or new car, these dealerships that want to come in. And that's a different issue than the developer wanting to do flex space on the other end of it.
Yes.
Now, my
That's what I mean by
my
the
issue with
plan.
that is that I've seen this change so much. It was, let's get our residential down here on the contaminated. Let's get our residential on the garden plots. That's not gonna work, okay, then let's get our flex space over here. It seems like there's this shell game all the time of how to continue generating revenue for the developer of the property. But in my mind, and I respect that and I appreciate those constraints and those concerns on their end. But for my hat, I have to say, our long-term vision of this is to make sure we're generating as much sales tax as possible on this only frontage we have on Mountain View corridor.
Yeah.
So
And
I
the city
can't,
is
I
in-
can't,
The city has invested
yeah,
taxpayer dollars.
which we haven't paid
in
back
this.
to Justin's department
Right.
yet.
Well, let me try to put out the plan that they put out as much as possible, then you guys, again, I'm not trying to
I
convince.
think we need to have them come in like they did before to give the whole council what their version of
Well,
the
that's
plan
fine, but
is.
let me kind of tell you what they've talked with us about, and then you guys can tell me where to go, you know, where to take back to them right now to be prepared. So it's north of Garage, south of Miller
I
Crossing
can,
Drive.
should I send them the picture that had the signs that, let me send this to John real quick here, I'll be real quick.
And this is from the developer?
Yeah, they, may take a second. Computer flags. So this will show kind of their land use plan. They should say that they're,
Do you want me to send it to me?
we've heard it, you can send it, cause mine always has that delay. So I can rethink what, after I hit send, so I have that set, that minute to think, do I really wanna send
Did
that?
I really need to send that? That's awesome.
Right, it's been a lifesaver, but.
I bet, I didn't, I'll have to look into that.
It's a setting you can put in there, but it does mean that it takes about a minute for my stuff to go. Just send them the 5 yes go.
Just the sign.
Yeah, so this will show at least their initial thought on where the dealerships will go. And we can talk about how both the end users view the Mountain View side
As
versus
cars.
the Main Street
Right.
side. They both talked about that, which fits kind of where, what the developer has been saying as well. And my guess is he's hearing it from them.
Well, and I mean, to that point, I'd say that
From
the
Trey.
picture I'm looking at here is, as far as the layout, is roughly what we had come to agreed to, right? There's the 8 fronting Mountain View and then 8 behind it, and then we allowed them, and it was a gift for us, we had to rezone from auto mall to commercial for garage grill and the car wash that does not produce any sales tax, right? Any of those, just because it's C2 doesn't mean that it produces sales tax.
That's right.
Right? So, I mean, that was already a big give on that end, and now they're asking to do it on the other end, and the residential, et cetera.
It's
Like
just
those
cutting off
things-
pieces of
Yeah,
it.
those things don't matter to the investment that we made here. If they have a cash flow problem, that's their problem. Our residents shouldn't have to approve any residential density because they need to make some bucks, right? That's not part of it.
How do we not get sales tax on car washes?
It's
a service.
Service fee.
State law.
Oh geez.
Somebody must have owned one, I don't know.
Commercial property tax and
Which
franchise
is
tax.
good.
And you get a larger property tax off
Going
commercial.
my whole
Yeah.
thing about balancing land use, but for this area of frontage.
So these fronts, they really see this is where your dealers are. They've talked, other kinds of dealers might be motorsports or boats. Service centers would be here, although some of them were talking about your service center is just behind your building.
Yeah, or to
So
own the building,
it's,
yeah.
it's not a
Like
separate
a
one,
big
you're
L,
building,
yeah.
you're
Right.
building it
It's how they
there.
make money, it's how they.
It's,
dealership.
and so there's a lot going on. We have a conditional use in, I think, an application for about 5 acres right here already. It's zoned, they can start to move forward. There's a lot of discussion.
I think there's a
I
option
think you can
to
still
buy
get
two
the 6.
lots of
I think you get 6 in here, maybe 8. These are bigger lots than, I think he's selling them in 5-acre chunks.
They could put a Carvana across the.
We asked about that.
We talked about that, that's a bad news,
There's,
yeah.
They're having some
is-
rough times.
Yeah, they're losing money.
there is another group that came to us about this whole property that
Although
would
the
be
vending
kind
machine's
of a
pretty
more
cool.
of a recreation, it would be a little bit like what
Game
Game
Point?
Point was talking about, except on steroids. So, we'll let that, if
An
that,
Arnold
if that works out,
Schwarzenegger
then
steroids.
we'll bring it, I mean, that will
Have you seen them
come
lately?
to you. Essentially, we told him to go talk to Larry and let him,
1978.
whether it would, I don't know how much sales tax it would generate, but it would probably bring a lot of people. There's a lot, we're getting hit with a lot of those kind of destination things you're talking about, and we could bring those later, but there's a lot of this percolating right at the moment.
Does any of that have to do with the legislation for the incentives at all?
These ones wouldn't, because again, they're not retail, so they're not hidden there, they're just people who are looking at the number of housetops that are going and saying,
Destination.
this could be a place I want to be. And
The only other consideration about some place like that, and obviously there's a cost associated with that, but if there is an activity center where youth can congregate, that helps move the pressure in that subdivision off, so it would allow them a destination area close by they could walk to, that might, remove
Yeah.
some of that pressure, anyway.
yeah, that's, so there's just a lot going on, but, so this is really the plan where I think they wanna call it the auto campus now.
Campus.
More of a campus feel with connections and stuff like that. It's still used, right? They're not talking new at this time. If they bring boats and RVs, they'll be new. But again, those would be on the Main Street side, those uses.
One of the end users did say, we could fill all this up, right? That wouldn't be
Yeah,
the
he did
hardest
say.
part. We could fill this all up in 2 years. He said, but what you wanna do is actually preserve it for a franchise,
Futures
a big,
franchise, yeah.
to
He did
keep it
tell us
open.
And they might even purchase it to preserve it for that purpose.
Yeah. Correct.
They know the demographics better than
Way better.
anyone,
Yep.
but it's all shifting
Oh,
this
they
direction,
know
which is why
total sales,
we can't-
leakage from this
we
area. like they
cannot
got
shoot
it.
ourselves in the foot and give it away prematurely.
So is this the proposed plan right now from the developer?
This is actually their sign plan where they wanna put their signs.
Okay.
But it lays out, okay, and right now, I think what they have in is actually splitting this, if I'm remembering
Okay.
correctly. It's not this full
7 acres.
piece.
Like
Well, that's not,
five acres
smaller than
I think it's about 5 acres. And so it starts to trim it up and it cuts it up a bit as what the end users think, this is what I need. There has been discussion, again, as soon as you prove it, then you can get,
Multiply, yeah.
one of them did tell us flat out, you're gonna have to have some real data on what's happening here before one of the big automakers will even look at you and talk to you. They just won't. It's the relationships of the people who will be building these that we would leverage to do that.
Both of those potential end users already have new car dealerships.
They already own new car dealerships as well.
Or they have a franchise agreement for it.
That's why I think they need, we did it in closed before, cause it had to do with our purchasing agreements, whatever, I think they need to come in and talk to us.
You can ask, it's up to them if they are willing to do it in a public meeting or not.
Well, I said,
We didn't enclose last
We
time,
didn't enclose,
because
no.
it was based on property.
because this is goes to the map I've been asking for, right? What do we own, what do they own, what are those contracts, et cetera, and how does this, cause that
Do they
has to be
currently-
part of our plan, okay?
Do they
what
currently
we-
own all this
That
land?
could be part of the.
It's in the takedown, but-
Yeah, I'm preparing a memo right now that shows what property we currently own, what's under contract, what they currently own, just to put a little more context to a map
Most of
like
this
this.
is Larry's already.
Okay.
He owns this part and then we have some of the
Some carved out stuff.
So part of where we're talking about, we had a meeting with the end users to discuss with the finance committee for the MDA to discuss the
Participation
just
agreement.
lost it, participation agreements, what that incentive package would look like. They listened to our meetings, they know exactly what we're talking about. We talked to them about, it's what they generate, but maybe that's how we get them to come in and share their vision is if you put that in front of the council to approve, they have to come and tell us how they're gonna make it. I'm looking at the two who heard it, if that, you think that might,
Cause it's different talking to them versus talking to the developer. See a plan.
And that's, sorry, I'm gonna.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and that's one of the difficulties we have is connecting those pieces, right? Because part of the development agreement as proposed includes this land that the developer might be planning, but other people are anticipating to use, right? So we're trying to talk with these people who have design standards in their minds of what they want to do and very high level design standards, or very, very specific standards of what they want there. And so there's some there's gonna have to be some collaboration between all of those parties to get that vision from the end users into the development agreement for these.
One in
pieces.
particular was adamant, he goes, whatever the standards are, mine will be better than that. Like, I will have the nicest, I mean, yeah, it was a big pride thing.
I mean, that's a lot of these dealerships, they have those standards, because you're walking into, if you're walking in a GM facility, it's gotta be.
New ones, too.
Yeah, brand new GM, and I think that's what they're gonna try to achieve, so in 5 years and they wanna flip it, or 10 years and wanna flip it, it's very lipstick and, paint.
I mean, what he's talking, if they put together, it would be phenomenal, it would be better than a lot of our new car dealerships I see, just glass, a lot of glass.
yeah.
And just to point out something,
Apple, that was his
It's
word,
only
yeah.
half.
They want it to be an apple.
is our current ordinance, again, to Nathan's point, already allows development of an auto mall with standards that are not that high, right?
Yeah.
Meaning, it would be more advantageous for them, at least more cost beneficial to come in
On
under
our
our current
standards.
ordinance and develop these out piecemeal rather than do it.
And I do like the name
No,
change,
I
because
agree.
less confusion of Sandy.
Do we have, I think we have some direction we can give back there to, so we should,
We should
do you wanna
reach
give an
out to them.
update on the Crescent piece?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I've talked to everybody, I think everybody's pretty much on the same page. He is proposing 120 units there.
That's what he showed us last time,
Crescent
correct?
piece, yep. No, everything two-story, less than two-story.
My concern with it, and I talked to you about this, and it's exactly what Jared just said earlier, is to put in all those units with no recreation space.
And we talked
There's
about
no
that.
green space, there's nothing in there.
Well,
It's,
And the backyard
density-
park is not
Connectivity.
sufficient.
The density bothers me just to begin with. I mean,
Right.
that what's being said to residents, et cetera, is that, well, it doesn't pencil. Well, we're selling at a complete discount to what it costs to take care of the soil. Like, there's no reason for us to give anything on that. The purchase price reflects that. We'll make money building anything on it. 1 acre lots makes money. Right? I'm not saying we want 1 acre lots there, but I think the density being
the
next door is
acquisition cost
crazy.
reflects the cost of the
Other
cleanup,
remediation.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the other issue too
15 acres for
is,
some-
and if we take it away from
produced by
commercial,
millions.
and they wrap U-111 down and the U-111's dumping onto 126, we got a bunch of cars passing by there every day.
If they want residential, kind of as I've talked to the residents over there, if it's similar to what their neighborhood is, I don't know that we could say no, but if they want higher density than that,
Well, the problem
why,
is,
why wouldn't
I
we
think it's
change
similar.
some
But
of
the
Why- why would
zoning of
we-
the other neighborhood,
they match.
what,
They
it
match,
would be
yeah.
exactly the same. The other neighborhood just moved their density around.
But it's
But
currently
this would
zoned
be-
commercial, right?
You know what I mean, right? We want
Yeah.
to match the adjoining.
I
Sort of thing.
6 units an acre, I think.
If they want more than that, I mean, the commercial thing, most of them, most of the neighbors there have said, well, look, and we can go to the commercial, non-commercial, but this is an area where those other commercial uses that don't produce sales tax do help balance out the land use and the property taxes and for services, everything else. I can go into my dissertation about how that's beneficial to everyone. But, I mean, if
Well,
we
the
put
church is
it,
right across the street.
if we put a
Yeah,
zoning,
the funeral home there.
we can,
I mean,
it's,
there's-
we own the property,
Thank you.
it's C2, we can put it zoning conditions on that say we would allow these commercial uses on, right?
They're really quiet.
That sort of thing. So
They're
there's
really like, tell you
several
something.
options there. But I can't do the idea of density for purely their sake, it's not needed.
And it's the 6 per acre, that's like 90 units, so that's not too far off, but.
And that's original, what he showed you originally.
So close to that.
Now, if you're bringing in all 8 of those automall pieces with everything that you're talking about, right, that they showed us before, yep, this is all happening, we've got all these lined up. But we need this to do it for whatever legitimate reason, that's a different story.
Yeah,
But that's
and
not
six-
what
He
we're
tried
talking
to
about.
explain it today in our committee and, or in the meeting, and essentially it's the cost of developing the auto mall essentially is so high that he wants this, or he needs this in order to show return on investment, to get the capital to do that.
That's not our problem.
Yeah, he-
That's not.
So you know what, I don't
He's
believe
leveraged
that,
himself a
because
little
the end user was saying that they were considering the cost of the infrastructure and they're wanting to buy it. we had to tell him that they're.
The one was, the other one.
Yeah, the one was. And he was saying, look, I'll buy it, I'm ready to build, I'm gonna build it, I've got all the money, I'm ready to go, you know, just let me at it. There was no consideration or of development costs, but the developer's plan for the property doesn't seem to facilitate the profit you would make from developing an auto mall. Selling it to people who wanna build dealerships would generate a revenue for you. You got the property at a killer price based on what the current market value is. You buy the land, you sell the land higher, it seems like a good business model. I guess I'm just not understanding.
He actually paid a pretty penny for the auto mall properties.
Some
of
of
them.
the
A good
But the-
part of it is well above
Okay,
above
but
market when he bought it.
But the average price per acre,
Plus if he throws in the 15 acres on the crescent.
yeah,
Well, and that's the part I have a problem with, is it's not our purview to make sure that he makes money, whatever like, the contract
agree.
we entered into was zoning for an auto mall and to help facilitate purchase of the land, that's it. He has to come up with the money, it's not on us to make sure that he has money when he's purchased other pieces of property that we told him he shouldn't do if they negatively affect this, right? When he asked for the extension of the loan, et cetera, we went through all of that, and he went ahead and bought those pieces anyway. Like, to try to hold these things over our head and say you have to do this, so I have enough money to make this happen,
yeah, and I need
is
enough
crazy
money,
to me.
but let me buy the Game Point property from you right now, right?
Think we know where to go?
I'm
Okay. Move on to item let's go 2.1.
Like, boom, boom, working.
Yeah, well, we're done with, let's do 2.1.
It's your fault, Sherry.
Discussion of potential land development code amendments.
this is.
Just passing on this side and passing on that side.
Hey, I stood up.
What are you talking
What did
about?
I tell you? What did I tell you? I know you both.
I'm having
You both.
PTSD of chicken roast.
No, you're not, it's fine.
Speaking of,
One, but
I
that's
bought
not
6 chickens. Bought 6 chickens on Saturday. I had 6 chickens, 6 little chicks.
You have zoning for that?
I checked with our zoning engineering department, yeah, I'm good.
You got a rooster? You picked up a
We checked
rooster?
with our planning department and I asked them specifically.
Who's got that title? Yeah.
We're all zone engineers here.
Alright, more right here.
He's got a raise too. You're a zoning engineer.
I'll take it. Alright, so this is a process we've been working through with Steve and Sherry on our agriculture and residential zones. There's some naming issues that we've been working through. Things that don't make sense, and it's not making sense why this is not working. Okay, either way. So what we've been trying to do is create more consistent, do we need that, Donald? So create consistent zone names, clarify the zones, and then identify appropriate and inappropriate uses in each of those zones. So this is our current names are of course on the left here, and this is on the handout as well, so you can refer to that. So right now we have agricultural and residential zones, right? But our agricultural zones are defined by the actual acreage, so 8.25 zone or 8.5 zone. So the A is agriculture, 0.25 quarter acre zone, 8.5 half acre, A1 is 1 acre. And then in our residential zones, it's R110, R115, and so it's, there's obviously a difference there that causes some confusion, so why is it different agriculture to residential? So we've kind of gone through it and tried to provide some cleanup on that to make everything more consistent and more understandable. And this option here is the preferred option that we've looked at. Just a quick explanation of zoning, if you've never seen this before. So you typically, the first letter is the zone type, the second letter is the number of units, and then the third letter, or the third number is the minimum lot size. So an R15 would be single family, 5,000 square foot lots, R16, et cetera, et cetera. So with this preferred option, we've kind of tried to make those consistent and make those more understandable. come back to that. And then this is just a matrix that we created to kind of compare all of our zones in terms of setbacks, sizes, lot coverage, all that kind of fun stuff. So with that being said, we're just we want to get this in front of the council and to see if there's any other consideration or any other cleanup or get any feedback from what we've worked on thus far.
825 is gone, right?
825 is gone.
That's all I care about.
Well, in that it's renamed.
Yes,
But it's clarified.
right.
It's just clear.
It's changed to 10,000
So
square
it's
foot
A110.
lots, right?
So we still, in the A110, I mean, that's maybe something we wanna talk about is what do we wanna do with the bonus density issue on the A.
Eliminate it,
Yeah,
Done.
shouldn't be any bonus
Well,
density.
right now, the A25, which if you convert it into the A110, it has the minimum, it's 1.8 units per acre is how it's described, and so then that has to be addressed and looked at too, because that's not a quarter acre lot.
Yeah, the A225 is really a confusing, so
Yeah.
it's
It's a
quarter
horrible
acres
zone.
and it's 1.8 units per acre, which doesn't,
Doesn't
Well, that's
include
why you're
that.
saying get rid of
Well,
that.
and you
You're
can
doing-
go up to 2.4 units per acre with the bonus density, but still that doesn't get you to the quarter acre lots typically. You're still looking at,
That's why the
30
A110 is
acres.
guaranteeing you 10,000, basically a quarter acre lot, the A110 now.
So you would change all that language, right?
if that's the direction that we wanna go, then yes, for sure.
Uses, uses in accessory structure businesses. So,
I see where you're going with this.
I don't know, that's a good question.
I'm sure, probably, but.
Well, I don't know, so I guess
If there's some conflict or
accessory
non-conformance.
structures are now
Accessory
based
structure.
off of lot
Go
size,
through accessory
so
structure.
those things would be
Well,
grandfathered.
now I'm
you,
being
you get
devil's
some
advocate
special
of my own
uses in
comment.
an ag zone in your accessory structure.
We're gonna
The
talk
the
about
A25 at one
For change
point, the
all.
bonus density
might have
means you start out at a
non-conforming
larger
uses that we
lot
have to
size,
address.
right?
Well, even though we just changed that
Should be
ordinance, we
the
still have
10,000
non-conforming,
square
right?
foot.
Currently?
Right,
That would be
That's under our
4 uses
current,
an acre.
Those uses would be
Right.
legal
825 is not
non-conforming, so
correct.
it's grandfathered.
Yeah, until they
Does
wanna
that make
change
sense?
the footprint.
max 2.5
Yeah,
units an acre.
which that part does make sense if that's how it works. Sorry, I didn't say that. So currently, if say it's A25, but it starts at 1.8, you have the bonus density basically to get to 10,000 square foot lots, like if that's the destination using that bonus density.
No, you're gonna get under it.
No,
You'll get
yeah,
under it.
cause the bonus density only lets you go to 2.5.
Like it, so what
10,000 lots would be
I'm
4
doing the
units.
hypothetical thing here, right? So I wouldn't say we wanna do, I said, what, the comment I made was get rid of bonus density.
Yep.
But if it's working with a lower number first and encouraging them to do things that benefit the city to get to the base number, then that would make sense. To get a higher density, then say, in this case, the 10,000, that doesn't make any sense. Like that should be the most that they get out of that zone, but if you start at a lower number and you have that as bonuses to encourage them to do things that make sense.
So you're saying a minimum, you would start higher than 10,000 square foot lots.
Yeah.
And then with bonus density, they can get down to 10,000.
yeah, I don't think you should ever in an agricultural zone have anything that's less than 10,000 square feet.
And then I'm good with that then, if we wanna do
Well,
some.
Well, but the agricultural, right, so depends what you're talking about. So this is my PTSD. 6 years ago, we spent 2 years talking about chickens, right? And that if I have a
Just so
town,
you
if
can
I
have
have,
them, Steve.
if I have a
That's what I'm
townhouse
saying.
and all I have is that little space behind my
Always
sliding door window, I have enough
They're
room to
awesome.
have a couple chickens, why would I not be allowed to have that to provide for my family, et cetera, et cetera?
Brought up chickens, I can't
No, he
So-
brought up chickens.
They're
So,
cute.
so I was definitely gonna talk about chickens tonight, because this is part, because this is part of the conversation, and this is
Hens
how I
versus
presented
roosters.
it
Picture
to our,
this one going to chickens.
No, it's a good
committee
point.
the other day, right?
But so for me, what the designation that was drawn or was intended to be drawn at the time was if it's agricultural, it's still spelled out like what size you can have, given the lot size you have, because there are things like a couple chickens that you could conceivably have in a very small area, but if it's zoned just residential, not agricultural, then you know you're buying something that doesn't allow that in that area.
Right.
If that makes any sense at all.
Right, well,
I
then,
understand
but then,
RNA
but
is a
then
rooster.
you banned roosters. So then it's like, then how can I raise chickens if I can't have a rooster? I can't.
You just buy them from IFA and.
Well, but then it's not truly agriculture, you're not truly raising your chickens. So.
I said we talked about this for 2 freaking years.
And you're bringing it back.
So,
This is the
cause
start.
it's been 6 years,
We
we
get
have to
about
rehash
2
these every 6 years.
Are we getting off target?
No,
No,
I
cause
think
I
you're
think
talking about ag, yeah.
the purpose of it is just to understand.
I'm sorry.
So my whole point, and I think I made this before, was that if we're gonna have agricultural zoning, then allow agricultural uses.
That's
Don't
right.
be so restrictive on your agricultural uses that people truly can't do agricultural,
then it's just
don't
a
even call them agricultural, call them residential. But if you're truly gonna preserve some residential, some agriculture areas, then be less
Restrictive. and
restrictive.
make you-
Yeah, it's like this, okay,
On
and
outbuildings
I know
and-
this is a weird
Oh.
concept, okay?
Animals.
On a 10,000 square foot lot, how many big dogs can you have?
3, right?
2.
2, 3,
3.
3, yeah.
You can have 3 large dogs on your, you could have 3, what's the biggest
Bull
dog, Saint
Mastiffs or
Bernards.
Saint Bernards,
You can have 3 Great Danes, you can have 3, do you know how many,
could you imagine?
do you know how many lambs you could have?
0.
0. Do you know what the difference is between that? I'd rather step in lamb crap than dog crap. I'm just saying that, so why would we not allow that? Why couldn't you allow animal husbandry to be the rule behind
Honestly,
that?
whatever you wanna do with that kind of designation, I don't care.
Just leave chickens out of it.
Because we split hairs over all of those things for how long? I mean,
Yeah.
just really,
I guess what my point is, I want to just say, if you're gonna have agricultural areas that you're gonna designate, master plan this funky green color that you've said
so if you,
agriculture.
so if you change this now, for those people who have chickens but not roosters, and you change this, does that mean they can now have roosters and we get complaints from all of their neighbors?
A lot of my neighbors already have roosters, so.
A lot of yours do, but I'm talking these confined, I mean, we have some
Some
fairly
small,
dense
yeah,
areas,
yeah,
even
yeah,
single
the
family,
ags.
where
Well, I'm not
that's- where that's the
suggesting in
case.
residential areas that you change that,
Only if it has the
only if
A.
it's an ag zone.
So, that's my question, there's a lot of existing agricultural
That they didn't
residential
rezone,
areas. That if we, my question is, if you change the designation as you're talking about, does it affect those existing ones? Cause that's what will happen if that's the case.
Open it up for everybody in that zone.
Yeah,
And the
that-
first rooster that's there that wakes people up in the morning, you'll get, we'll all get killed with, you might not.
Roosters don't
ordinary,
crow till
but
7 a.m. So.
We,
People's
Yeah.
dogs,
we'll
people's
get,
dogs bark before that.
but that's what the rules are now, right? And so now you've changed it, now you're letting them have it. Like, that's my concern is,
So here's the thing, I think the other alternative is that the areas that are A25 that are simply residential subdivision traditional lots.
Need to be rezoned.
And you turn them into R zones, what rights are you taking away from people
Yeah.
that they might already be exercising,
True.
right?
Yeah.
So you're either granting some uses or taking away some uses, and nobody's gonna be happy with that change, right? You can't satisfy everybody with that change.
Yeah.
So
Who started this whole conversation?
that's why we get the big bucks, is to make these hard
so I
decisions.
totally get where you're coming from, and I agree from that perspective of, yeah, if I wanna raise them, I want to breed them and raise them. But that's different in maybe, your area than even my area. They live in. So are we talking about changes for existing areas, or just changing this for new development? What are we talking about?
Well, I don't know, I guess I'm having a hard time understanding how many areas it would really affect, because my area is an agricultural, general plan agricultural area, even though that's A25, smaller lots or whatever, that's what was intended on, and that's the areas that they're in, right? So to me, it's like it wouldn't really change much. It might be more permissive than, quite frankly, I didn't know, sorry, this is really embarrassing. I didn't know you couldn't have a rooster. I've had a rooster 100 times. It's
I
like,
totally agree
oh,
with
didn't know that.
with the sheep thing, right? I mean, my daughter did 4-H
Yeah.
and raised lamb and that whole stuff, but we had to do it somewhere else.
Exactly.
Cause it wasn't
Yeah.
allowed.
Exactly, but then it's like, but gosh,
But we've got 2 dogs that were way bigger than that sheep. I
yeah,
mean, they didn't bark.
My
So I
dog's
just
bigger than
wanna
a sheep.
But like where it came to chickens was like the rooster thing is super, it is such a touchy issue though. I mean, just the staff that has been around that long will tell you how many complaints, right, Tim, is that? How many complaints we get about that rooster waking people up and causing ruckus, whatever, those shouldn't be allowed here.
You know, I think the difference is though, I was having a conversation about this, right? What's the difference between a dog and lambs, blah, blah, blah. I think that most people would make the argument that there are domesticated animals and there's livestock, and there's difference. And that the livestock should be permitted in agricultural and the domesticated animals should be allowed in the residential, and that's
What about
kind of
the
where the
pig?
distinction is. It's a good
That's a
question.
good point.
Cause you got the potbelly pigs that are.
Well, and pigs are in actuality one of the most clean animals you can have, so if you wanted to have a cleaner animal, it could be the one you should choose.
They taste
They
really
are.
good. One,
I think, that's a good point though.
I just wanted to add something to this conversation too. A lot of what you're discussing isn't necessarily zoning. Some of it are animal enforcement code,
Right.
Title
That,
V.
that's,
And there's a layer, I think, the order of operations here is establish your zoning. And you can list a lot of these uses within that zoning. But a part of this discussion is also our animal enforcement code, Title
Right,
V.
right, but the reason I had to bring it up tonight is because there's a table associated with
Right.
it that says permitted or conditional or not
Yeah,
permitted,
right.
so we have to
And that's the zoning piece, right?
exactly allow, we have to decide whether or not we want to
My
permit
opinion is
it.
try to head off as many unintended consequences as
For
possible.
sure, for sure. But anyway, but that was my question, it's like, yeah, and I understand that, but I also believe that I don't like the idea, if, I told Teddy this today, if you're in a, HOA, or you have CCNRs that say, sorry, you're not having those animals in this area, you move into that area understanding that, but
Knowing and willingly, yeah.
yeah, but if you're in an area that you're like, okay, I wanted to raise some chickens in my backyard, and I'm an agriculture area, and then they say, sorry, you can't takes two components to raise chicks.
Sherry, can I make a suggestion at this point?
Yeah, sorry.
And I just said this to the mayor too, is if I was being, handcuffed to make a decision, like right this moment.
Right.
I would say that anything that is A25, that's got
A110.
10,000 square foot, should be R110. It should just be rezoned residential. The things that are A.5 or bigger, where you can actually have livestock and all that kind of stuff, those should remain agriculture, and we should review what rights are granted there for animal use. But the A25 that are subdivision houses, that people are not using those for agricultural purposes. But we should look at, if they want a garden or some chickens or a single lamb or something like that,
Yeah,
right? There might be reasons to do that.
You completely change the whole dynamics of an area if you do that. My whole area it's generally an A25 area, and I do have people who do that. And if you be more permissive, like I was just saying, there are people, Vernon parents, sorry Vernon, if you don't wanna be on here, both of his kids raised their 4-H lambs on their lot in Hampton Farms. You know what I mean? There are people that would utilize that if there's those types of options. And so, again, that strips away all those rights that those people moved into those areas with the potential to use.
And maybe we should look at that. There's certain areas that we would say the predominant use is agriculture, so we preserve it as an agriculture zone, and then the other stuff that's really not, it's zoned A25, but it's not being used agricultural, we would consider rezoning
Agricultural
that as
overlay.
Predominant use
residential,
is again, a difficult thing to say, the predominant use, it's like,
I know.
it's not about the predominant, there's people who live on an acre that have no intention of having a large animal, but then the next person that buys their thing, they might put an animal on there, because it's permitted.
Okay, right, but there's people that, let's talk about the area we were at, over there by the
Yeah.
park, right? That the predominant use is 5-acre lots with horses, but because of the way it was owned, people came in and put 1/4-acre subdivision houses on there, right? Somebody somewhere along the line are gonna have conflicting priorities on the uses, right? I don't necessarily wanna deny people that are in areas where there's a lot of agricultural uses of their properties to not continue those rights. That's not what I'm advocating for. What I'm suggesting is, if my area in Rosecrest was zoned A25, it shouldn't be zoned A25, because there's nobody doing agricultural stuff there, right? And so, I think there's parts of it where we would consider, to your point, if it's an A zone, it should be for agricultural use, and we need to preserve the rights that come with agricultural use. If it's an R use, it really should be rezoned as an R property, because the intent isn't to use it for agriculture.
But did we let the developers use the A zone as a crutch for guidelines, standards,
Yeah.
quicker development? And so we let them do that. Now, how do we retrofit those areas, right? That are true subdivision developments.
Yeah.
But yet, some of them might be using it
Without
as,
stripping people's rights.
some of them might be having chickens or.
Can you do
or
it, can you do
small
an
animals.
overlay? Existing?
What might be better to move us forward off this, cause originally we just started, let's try and
Sorry.
clean up the
I
title.
like the naming.
So the naming
Good job on the
makes
naming.
sense.
Maybe it's a different discussion.
Control of this discussion.
Cause I think right now, the idea is,
Start talking
can
about
we,
chickens, you lose control.
can we clean up the names of the zones so they make sense? And then we can talk, cause right now, none of this is to change anything that's in there, right? We haven't gotten to that part. We're just saying, we think if we name
These
it
two
this way,
pages, yeah.
it makes more sense. And I believe all these setbacks and everything, this is what's already
Already
in there,
existing, yeah.
under the names, the other sheet,
Right,
the
so we
side
got the-
yards.
the current and then proposed and then all the setbacks and stuff.
And those,
That's
we
what
didn't,
currently exist. None
okay,
of that was modified.
so for right now,
Except for the addition of the three.
Right.
talking about, do you change, so the R zones, it would just make more sense because most of them aren't R 110, we have people building lots that are different, we should clarify that.
R16 or R15.
So do the titles make sense, because I think what we're talking about is a larger issue and somewhat policy driven. Because I look up there is a lot of ag land that's residential that may actually have CC&Rs with an HOA that say you can't
Right.
do these things. And in that sense,
It's
Councilor
easy.
Shields is exactly right, we should go through there and say, if that's what you're doing, then we should probably clarify
Codify that in our zoning.
and make that an R1. But Hamilton Farms, I know there are people with chickens out there.
No, there's
I-
people,
I-
a lot
Yeah.
of other,
Well,
like I just
there's
said.
larger lots there that have horses and all, and
No, our properties could have chickens, A zones can have chickens and roosters, you know? Like, I mean,
so and right now we're,
that's the difference.
No more chickens.
so what we
No.
would, at least if the
that
names
makes
make sense, then we can maybe tackle this next piece, but we're just trying to come up with a way originally to say, because it didn't always make sense between the way our R zones were talked about and the A zones, and frankly, RM, what does RM mean?
Well,
Residential multifamily, so here we're gonna describe it, it's the 20 units that's in there, let's just call it R20 instead of
Yeah,
this.
Totally agree with that concept, yes.
I agree with that too, and I like the idea of that, the 825 thing has always been stupid as far as the minimum should be 10,000 if that's what you're
Yep.
gonna do, so.
And it's still minimum, so for this, I think the names, we probably need,
Names work,
that
makes sense.
start looking at the specific uses in the A zones, but
I think we included something in the packet as well.
Yeah, there's a table, that's why I said we had to talk about it, cause there's a table.
yeah.
So when we can start looking at that, cause I
I
think
think
that,
that's what exists now,
Let's make
right?
the use table a separate
made some
conversation
changes to it.
and the
So
density,
permitted uses, yeah.
the bonus density, whatever, a separate conversation.
Yeah, and I don't think you should ever get enough bonus density that you take it below 10,000 square feet.
Or whatever that
period.
minimum
That's the
is.
minimum.
So I believe right
Yeah.
now, that's how it's listed, it's a minimum, so you would actually start above that, and with your bonus density,
You could get to 10,000.
you could get to 2.4 right now, we could change that. And this is a whole other can of worms that we're stepping into. We've been working with engineering for the past, 6 months on trying to figure out, cause right now our bonus density is very subjective, if you will.
Yeah, for sure.
If you do X, it's hard to base it off of a public improvement, because what if somebody does a public improvement that costs $50,000 versus somebody that gets, does $150,000, they still get the same density points. So we're thinking about taking all of those kinds of things completely out and just basing it on development types, since we don't have the ability to regulate exterior materials, we introduce that back in. If you do if in this subdivision you do 60% brick or stone, you get a certain amount of
That's a
bonus
fantastic.
density. Or if you do a certain kind of, landscaping or whatever the case might be, then you get density for that, but not just for something that's really subjective like the
Planning engineering you got going on is genius.
my engineers are.
Plant engineers,
Plant
plant engineers.
So is that enough direction for us?
Yes, that is.
The names.
I do think
We
we
got
need to
there
come back
eventually.
on this discussion about what the ag zones mean.
Yeah, that's the only reason I brought it up is because it was in the table and I'm like, if we're gonna consider all this in the table, then we have to understand the portion of it too. So I agree 100% with these definitions. These 2-pager thing right here, this is grand. The table thing is a larger discussion.
We will,
And I'll
So
be
we wanna
glad to look
tackle
on the slide
all of this
presentation.
in one thing, like the names and the uses, or do we wanna do the names first? and
that
then-
sounds
I think we could just do the names,
Yeah.
as a text, just change the names, because you're not really changing anybody's usage, we're just changing, making it clear for people, and then we can tackle these other uses.
5-foot setbacks are still tight though.
And there might be a lot of research like the CCNRs, like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff that would have to say, yeah, these are the areas. that-
We'd have to have the HOA overlays and see where they're at and see
Yeah.
some others, that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Maybe one other clarification, so we've introduced the R15, R16, and R18 zones, are we okay with those zones, or do you?
Hope
we
we
have
never
them.
use them. Just kidding.
Yeah, we
Those
have
are
them,
great
so
names
it's,
of zones, yes.
yes.
Right, so if we include those as potential zones, we're okay with that.
Actually, I much prefer R15 to R210.
R210 should be stricken from the record.
R210 is super confusing.
Yeah, that makes no
Right.
sense. Same with R250.
Yeah, cause they don't,
Get them out.
they have nothing to do with.
I said a long time ago that I would get R210 removed.
Just now's your
Horrible.
moment.
10,000 square foot lot, you can have a duplex, that's all I mean.
But nobody, you can build up to 8 units per acre though,
But the way we're applying.
which has nothing, so it should probably be, what is R2,
Okay.
whatever, 8 units per acre.
It was the old
Any other
school when they
questions
built
on
duplexes.
R21.
Okay, we got the
No,
big set.
R8 43.
Big set.
So move forward with that.
Okay,
It should be an R8
okay,
43.
let's move on.
Get it done. Let's go.
Move on.
This is a
Okay.
good, this is a
Yeah,
good
that's
workshop.
actually not.
That's exactly what it should be.
I
Yeah,
said 10.
that's
Confusing
right.
things
Wow,
out.
okay, we're 6 minutes past, I lost tonight, so we're 6 minutes past.
Well, you
No. You bet the over and then went and filmed the video.
Yeah, dude.
Right?
How did you pull that off?
You can't do that.
We're not even close to that.
I told my family I've got
That's called
53
illegal
minutes to get
bookmaking.
this done, so let's see.
Oh, we'll be done, I hope. If people will cooperate tonight.
Whatever you say, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, before I turn over to Tammy, let me tell you why this is coming back already for the goals we're talking about. I've had a couple discussions with council, and then I've had, you're not done, Jared. You know, and Nathan, I hope you're all.
We'll tell you what your goals are.
share this, but I've kind of
He's
shared
gonna
this
tell
to
me.
everybody, but I think for a while, with the past administration, there was some experience in the city, there was they kind of knew, based on conversations where things were going. Now we have a new city manager that's been here, coming from out of state, doesn't know our history, doesn't know where we've been, doesn't know where we've talked about. So Nathan flat out told me, says at times he does feel like he's kind of floundering, waiting for us to, doesn't know where to take our city. Because we have not given him direction. We talked about, and to your point, I think we're addressing that, fixing the things that are coming up with his strategic, with the plan, the capital improvement plan. That's coming, that's good, and I think that can be part of this. But really and honestly, I've had a couple other conversations with staff, that it's, because, and this isn't critical, I think we're all huge fans of Nathan here, so don't, but I think it's trickling down to where, I think, so Nathan's struggling now to disseminate that down to other people. You know, even where, for example, I'm not saying this, but say events doesn't know what to do because we haven't given them guidance. We truly, as a council, I believe this, we have to give our staff right now some guidance, where we want to be as a city.
If
We
I
have
might,
to.
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
as well. So one of the things I heard last time is, well, what is the vision? Frankly, I believe I'm here because it was a staff-driven vision before, with council sitting on the outside. So I don't wanna go down that path. So I think I've looked through these, we gave you the goals, there's been some processes. It doesn't have, we don't have to get into this real deep visioning tonight.
Right.
But the council, you're elected by the citizens. You are their representatives. Nobody else in the city, not your planning commissioners, not your staff, are elected representatives. Only you. From an outsider's perspective, there are things that the planning commission does that I think, wow, you should have a say on what that policy, what that vision should be, and that would come from a document or from a process, because ultimately, you're accountable to the voters. I will say, I work for all the citizens of the city, but I'm accountable to you five. That's how I look at it. So if we can set up this vision, and looking through here, I know there's been some frustration with capital projects showing up on lists and then disappearing. Some of these are super easy, I'd say low-hanging fruit, and we've been doing that. Staff are preparing a capital plan, a 5-year capital plan. Frankly, this is like City 101. So it's easy. It's hard, I think, right now because we haven't ever done it. And look, Justin and the engineering staff, they've been trying to pull all this together. They've had a lot of this, but it's never been systematic. So the advantage of that is you can see what's coming. You wanna see a project, you see it's 2 years out or 3 years out, you know it's there, your citizens ask you. If it's not on the list, you can start advocating, and that's where the discussion is, how do we plan for this? How do we know when to build it? And so, those things, that's not really a strategic plan, that's a infrastructure planning. And we do master plans, we can bring that to you, your vision may help us prioritize where those are at, but we're going to do those basics. Whatever you decide tonight, we'll bring you all the basics, all the parts and pieces, so you can run the city. But if you want to steer and direct it, we need that's what we need as staff. So we know the efforts we're putting in are moving the city in a direction that the elected representatives, that your constituents say, this is what we want this community to be. We know that's what and then we can set all the measurable pieces and the time limited and assign who's doing it and track it. I put on the staff report. I can't tell you how many goals I've read like this, that I say, what does promote mean? Oh.
Yeah.
But if it's promote okay, I'm going to do, I don't even know what the city blueprint was, never seen it, but if that was what the goal was, then we would say, okay, communications is going to do X number of whatevers in the first year to begin to tell that. That's how we would make these actionable. These are great goals. So what council needs is a vision, and they can be those high level goals. I don't expect council to sit here and say, okay, by this date I want this. That's our job, and we will come back with, I'm gonna call it a tactical. You guys set the strategy, we'll figure out the tactics. And we'll bring that to you, you can say, okay, yes, this makes sense. And then we can look at, once we hit those measurable things, we'll try and probably collectively come up with some proxies to say, are we making a difference? And then we'll track it. And if we feel like we're making a difference, we'll go all in on it. If we do it for a while and it's not making a difference, let's jettison that and try something and try to find some other way to make the difference we want. Doesn't mean get rid of the goal, it means whatever we're doing is not making a difference. So instead of, as I've said before, becoming super efficient at something very ineffective, let's step back and do it. And that's what I will promise to you, that's what we'll be bringing back to you and checking in with. It's part of the budget processes and just normal check-ins. Hey, we're doing this. This is the thing that frustrates us, I think, with SB 34. Right, we do these plans, the state said, okay, they're gonna double down, we're gonna do more of these planning. It's done nothing. But they're not talking about it, it's not doing more, it's not doing anything, so let's do more of it to see if we can get even more. So that's what that's what I do not want to do, because it's incredibly frustrating for everybody, so. That's just my pitch on this, and I know the mayor and I have had a lot of conversations. I would love for this council to come up with where you want this community to be, because then that gives us as staff, there's the goalpost, that's where we're heading, and let's go do it.
And if I would say, Nathan, to your point, right now, there's this, I don't know, there's this energy right now in the city. I don't know what it is, these projects that are coming through, like, I've been here a lot this week, right? And there's some energy among staff right now. There's a lot of interest in our community right now. There's a lot of engaged residents. I mean, I've never seen such engaged citizens and residents wanting to be parts of committees, and you know, there's an excitement of parks and trails. I think we could take advantage of this and really, I mean, this is a critical time for our city, and I'm so excited about where we've got a great opportunity right now to just, let's go, let's get going. That's why I'm so excited about this, because I think we can, the five of us right here can shape Harriman for not just for 4 years, but for many years to come based on our vision, so.
Yeah.
That's,
So I guess it's hard because some things like after the mayor's things were more like maybe philosophical, like, and my visions are always like, can we just please get our city to the point where our infrastructure is good and just the basic things, you know what I mean? So those kinds of things to me are important, that I don't have neighbors call and saying, you know, when I drive my trailer, I drove 500 miles today and everything stayed on the shelf in my trailer until I hit Main Street in Harriman. I don't, you know what I mean? To me, those are the concerns that are constantly, that I get constantly from our residents.
and my argument to that would be, that's what they're gonna deal with. That's what staff is gonna deal with. I mean, that's just gonna be, I mean, if we didn't give them a vision, that's what they're gonna do anyways. They're gonna listen to the concerns, they're gonna fix roads, we're trying to get above that level to where we're giving them future plans. Where do we want, and I mean, you look at some of these goals, can we put those up? I think that'll
I
give
guess
us.
my hardest thing is we've never in 4 years gotten above that level. I can't tell you how many times I've seen my roads be on that list and they vanish, and so
Right, and
it's
that's
hard
what
for me
he's-
to go, and so I understand what you're
So-
saying, but
so
it's
we'll-
like, we have to accomplish this level before I feel 100% confident that we can achieve those other things. It's nothing, I agreed with the things that you're saying, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm understanding that, but, and so I'm liking some of the things that you're saying for sure, and I think that we need to have those conversations, but when I've thought about it to bring to this meeting, I kinda get stuck at those, it's like, gosh, yeah, but my residents are still super complaining about, not my residents, but the people that I hear back from, because that's affecting them every day.
Well, I think that's the difference from those that have been here a while, and I mean residents that have lived in the community for a while, right? Cause I know when we first moved here, we had lots of energy. We'd go through all the history, but I mean, man, we had neighbors who were part of Old Town and took us on tours of the city to look at the different monuments and tell us the history of the city. Like we wanted to be involved, but as the years have gone on, my street still sucks. Right?
Well,
And
that's
it's hard for those people to stay energized and say, yeah, I wanna be a part of whatever this vision is, when my street still hasn't been fixed in 10 years.
And I get it, I'm not.
And you and I talked about that, right? It's hard to get over that hurdle for those that we wanna be excited and we wanna be involved, but Jared, come on. Like, I still don't have water pressure, my sprinklers still don't work. I mean, those basic things, like to get over that hurdle, gotta get there, so I get it, we're gonna fix those things, we're gonna make a plan, etc. So my question for you would be you want direction from council, well, give me some specifics, are you saying just this, what's been referenced a few times is what do we want the city to be, what does that mean? Like, you need, at least for me, planning wise, you have to break that out into specifics, right? To have one nebulous goal,
Well,
like
pull this up, I think, pull this up, can we, right here. For me, and I'm just gonna.
direction.
So these
What
are
do
the
you want
things you
direction
had
on?
before.
These are the goals that have been in place, so economic
These
development.
were the
I
top
think this is, for me, economic development is huge.
Or the top five.
You're saying these are what they have been, or this is?
These are what they have been.
This
These
is
are
what
what
they
you
were
guys came
in
up with in 2018.
2018. I think it was the
The
last
ones
time
in
you went through the
2019,
process.
you just did capital projects, so.
And so this is the thing, Jared, that to me, if we want the roads fixed faster, this is a key. Economic development is a key to get more money, more tax revenue,
Sure.
to be able to fix those roads
We,
faster.
we'll all agree, and on economic development.
And that's what
So-
we're saying, that's all I'm saying, these are the kind of, maybe I'm maybe.
So
sound-
what, I guess, again, the question is, well, what direction do you want? Like, you ask some specifics, like what, are we talking about a mission statement?
We're
Are
talking
we talking
three
about
goals.
specific goals?
I would say, so I actually took your economic development, so you had these key initiatives, and I said, what I would do with staff, is the first thing is you have to identify, where are we at? Where are we at today? Cause I don't know if I'm improving if I don't know where I'm at. So you figure out something, you say, okay, by this date, we're gonna do a survey, right? You would spell it out, who's responsible, communication's responsible. So this is more the tactics piece. This is what, if, in my memo, I just said, I would take these and I would add this, so I know how to do it.
Right.
Your question, I actually think, and yours about the infrastructure, I think those are very valid. And so, to help another city who would kind of bog down where you were at when I came in, we had this conversation. What they ended up picking were 3 priority areas. They didn't even get to goals. It took us a while to get to setting goals. They just said the priorities were economic development, infrastructure, and people feeling safe in their homes. Wasn't necessarily public safety. It was public safe at home and at work. It was a feeling, how do we make the community feel safe? And so that was lighting on streets and clean parks and the police played a role, but we discussed then, if we put a police officer on every corner with their M4 and you drove into that town, would you feel safe?
No,
Or would you be like,
worse.
holy cow, what in the world did I get into? Let me get out of here. And so you need those other things. So that's something they picked. We worked with that for about a year and a half until they felt comfortable that we were addressing those basics. When somebody comes up with a goal is, I want you to take, there should be a goal to empty the trash cans at the park. I don't need a goal to do that. We're going to do that. That's just a basic kind of thing we have to do. But the goal could be, we want to look at our parks and make sure they meet the needs of the surrounding neighborhood. They were built with the neighborhood this way, we built them, they've been there for 20 years, do they still meet that need? That would be a goal like that, where you start walking through and saying, that's something staff could take, so. Again, they picked 3 high level, we did that, and then we went through the vision and mission, once council, in that case, they knew staff was going to do it. And I wouldn't say that the guy had retired and he was they just hadn't done anything for a while.
Yeah.
They'd kind of done it for a while and then they just stopped. And the community expectations weren't as high as here, honestly. I think our citizens here expect more. And so for us, if we can come up with 3, I was telling them there, 3 goals or three focus areas, whatever you wanna call them, I don't care. I think we
And
can
Nathan's idea was live, work, play, that's a very common,
It was,
Something else.
Yeah, it was something
but it's I'm just saying,
thrive,
but I'm just saying it's kind of I don't want to say live, work, play, cause you're right, that's,
Keep her
but I'm
weird.
just saying, keep Herman weird, yes.
I'm
But-
saying,
The one with the big.
so I'll tell you this, so in an ecclesiastical role I once had, there's a program that helps people meet their basic needs, because until their basic needs are met of food and water, I can't help them with this other aspect of their life, because the only thing they're worried about is their
The
food and
survival.
water, they're just trying to survive. And so it's hard, because I feel like been in that zone to where, but we still don't have this, so it's hard to transition into even
But can
knowing
I,
what
I can tell you, Sherry, though,
goals here.
in an ecclesiastical world, there is an outcome. There's an eventual outcome. You're trying to meet their goals so that you can progress towards
Right,
those.
but you can't
Another
have
Here's my building
conversations
blocks for you.
with them with this
In order to
until
have the
that's
top
made.
one, you have to do the bottom 2.
What are they?
Right, so if you want, the top one says feel goods, if you want the feel good things, then you gotta have that block on top, you gotta have the 2 to support it, which is
Jared, what I
basic
think Nathan-
services and safety.
But I think what Nathan's saying, they're gonna work on that, that is gonna happen. They're already working on that. How do we want for example, one thing you and I have talked about this, why can't Harriman have a goal to be the recreation destination of the southwest part of the valley? Why can't that be a goal? That could be a goal. We talked about that. We want more sports. We
What's-
want more trails.
What's the result of it? Why, then you have to ask, why do we want that?
No, you don't.
No, I thought about that too,
You could-
like,
enjoyment of life,
when they're
quality of
talking
life.
about
Well,
the
yeah.
Well,
schools.
I say you
maybe
do-
we're
you do
an
have to say
education hub, that was when Utah State
If you're gonna
was coming and
spend
everything.
taxpayer dollars, you have to tell them why we're doing it.
But we're not spending any money on this, there's no fiscal to it. It's coming up with the vision of the path after our basic needs are met. Cause we've been in survival mode for the city for the last 4 years, 8 years technically, right? We've just
Feels like
barely
it.
been meeting our needs. And even our budget barely meets our needs, actually, our budget
Doesn't.
doesn't even meet our needs, right?
Yeah.
And so, once we have our basic needs set, we need to have that goalpost, and I think the city's done a good job of barely, surviving, right? And so now we need to look at what we can do in the next 5 years.
Let Uncle Steve tell you a story.
Before you tell the story, the reason I say ask why, to me, the recreation, whatever it is twofold, right? All the benefits of having open space and things for people to do close to home, but the economic portion of it, right? We've talked about before, economic development. The map is what it is, guys. Like, we're not, like, we have very limited opportunity for any economic development. It's not like it's a blank slate anymore. It's gone. It's entitled. It's all housing. There's literally only a couple of specs where there's anything that can be done there. Your consultant will tell you that, right? Here's what you can expect from that. So how else can we affect it? What do we have that other cities don't have? We're the cul-de-sac up here. We have the mountains, and we have some space that we can put in some programmable stuff to bring people out here to recreate, spend their money. So how do we capture those dollars? How do we make those things good for our residents and capture dollars coming in and out? So that's what I mean by
That's a goal right there.
whatever that is, then you have to say, why are we doing it? What are the benefits, right? And then you make your plan for that. That's all I'm saying.
And those those two tie right together, might be. I think you almost had two goals in one right there. You got the recreation destination that then creates,
Economic.
the
No,
economic
it ties
development.
into all of those, right?
Yeah.
It's services.
And that's all we're saying. I don't think you're off at all. I just think that we're saying, let's put this on paper so then staff, because if we're saying, you bring up a lot of times, a trailhead. Like, we've got these trails, but we haven't put a lot of trailheads.
Or
But it-
access.
Where's
Or
the
access.
access? And how do we capture the dollars coming in?
But I'm
and out?
saying now, if we create this vision of becoming a recreation destination, that signals to staff down the line, this is a priority.
This is a
We-
focus
We'll
on it.
find,
We've been
when
saying
we have
that
money,
since the day I came in.
But it's not on paper.
We did, well, and we
That's
had
what
it
we're
as a
trying to do. We're
goal,
trying to
we
put
just
this on paper so that
couldn't brand
Nathan,
it
who's
that way
new-
Because we didn't have any destinations, so.
We have a lot of destinations.
So
Now, but
now,
we
yeah.
didn't when we were
So
doing
it's-
this.
it's
We're-
okay
we
to
don't
put
have
a goal
trailheads to send everybody to.
that
We
you
don't-
realistically can't meet for many years,
Yeah.
right? So you should always have a swing for the fences goal.
Sure.
Right, so if that's one of the things you want to do, there may be a bunch of smaller goals and steps that have to happen before it. And you're exactly right, it doesn't do us a whole lot of good to bring everybody out here and have them go to Riverton to go out to eat. Right, to spend all their, so we do have to, if that's one of the goals, the economic development goal may be, where do we build these? If we're putting all this investment in the Juniper Trailhead, luckily it's next door to County Village. We should be thinking,
Marketing
where
to
else do we
businesses,
do
yeah.
that? Hey, there's this large area when people come off the hill and they're back to their car. Is it convenient for them to leave some of their money before they go home?
Yeah, just like we were talking about Laguna Malibu, it's like, but we better have a strong vision on that, because the only reason we want them to access that is if they're.
And,
they're-
Just to
and
capture
you make the
everything.
great point, that's exactly where we're going with this, because it's hard for us to have these discussions with Laguna Malibu and not have this vision in place from this council to say that's what we want. I can say that in these meetings, but until that's on paper from this council, saying that's our vision, that's what we need, because our developers don't even know what our vision is, what we're trying to accomplish.
Then if we do have trailheads spot out, or even proposed out, or even grand schemed out, we know where we want the development to be.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I guess my, the only
6
reason I
years.
started the conversation like that was because we have had these
Say that's,
conversations,
I just
right?
told Wendy, that's
But it-
infuriating to me.
But it's never felt like it's
What
got
is?
beyond that, because then we're
That
just
the developers don't
shrink
know
back
that
into
that's
meeting
what
our
our
basic
goals, cause
needs
that's
all the
what our
time.
goal's been
Never
for the 6 years I've been here.
keep going.
And that's what we've tried to accomplish, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it takes time for all of these things to come together,
Yeah.
financially and
There will be
design and
benefit,
construction.
yeah, as when we're the time, but there's gonna be benefit to put this on paper, because I can't tell you how many times I've met with developers in other places, they're saying, well, And these were things where you're trying to redevelop a downtown that's been there since 1879, right? So the bones are there. There's a lot of things there that you may not want, and you're thinking,
Literal.
how do you get them to do something? They said, well, what does the city want? What is the vision for this area? And if you have it on paper, you can sit down and go through this. They're gonna take that, and they're going back to their investors to say, this city knows where they want to go. And we're gonna put in, I showed them yesterday a hotel that I can't tell you how many hours I worked with this group. We had it was an old Buick dealership that half of it had collapsed in a snowstorm in 2004. I went there, or 2006, I went there in 2013 and the building was still there, collapsed. So I'm like, what are we doing with this? So we ended up going through a whole process about it. They're gonna redevelop it, right, in this downtown. The city had, we had to take some real risks on it. But the one thing, he was the guy, he said, well, what's your vision? What is the vision? And once we started showing him, here's what we're doing, that vision spun off 2 other hotels on the other end of the downtown. Cause he's like, well, I wanna be part of that, but I don't wanna be next to them. You've got the lake here I wanna be next to. And it's having that document, and it wasn't like this big fancy plan, it just said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make our waterfronts productive. We're gonna do this, and we started talking about, we had a university, we're connecting the university into the downtown. There was enough there for them to say, okay, we can get behind that. It wasn't, we didn't spend
No.
thousands of dollars preparing anything. It really was generated by staff, and we said, here's what we want in our downtown.
If it's not written down, it's not a goal.
And it does pay sometimes to pay for the pretty pictures, because that does sell as well, so.
And Jared, I'm not saying it's not been there, that's not meant to be critical of anybody, I'm just saying, I'm new to this. Looking forward, how can I sit down with Laguna Malibu and say, this is our vision, we want, we wanna be a recreation destination, but then we want economic development around those outlets. I mean, to me, that's 2 goals, what you just said. Economic development centered around our recreation opportunities with I mean, if that's what,
Trail access and
with trail
connectivity.
Well, our
access, whatever, and
studies
and
showed
open
that
spaces.
we had to create some
And then what's the
sort of
third goal? You talk a lot about
Yeah.
balanced land use, so you can even put that in, create housing types for all stages of life.
Balanced land use means something other than housing.
I know, but I'm just saying, if you stick to the housing side of things, we're talking, when I say live, work, play, I'm trying to, now I'm saying, your work is some
Live,
economic
thrive,
development
enjoy.
with some job centers.
Live what?
Thrive, so Thrive was you can work there. It's hard to attract people, this is unique, right? We've got business centers outside, and right now I think everybody commutes out. Like we have,
Majority.
most of our staff commutes in,
Home.
right? There's this strange thing going on.
I'm here
How do
for
we
the land.
create a community where somebody can open their own business and thrive, right? How do we do that? How do we give people a vision that Harriman is a place they could take a risk with a business? That's part of that thrive, that's what we were shooting for in Thrive, that kind of worked.
Like it.
Play makes sense. What I'm hearing with this destination is, and maybe we've already done this, is you have a feasibility. Here are the things, the top 3 things we actually think we can get out here. And then maybe there's some others that, if we could get these would be good. And then we build a plan on how do we go after this. We don't own much land here. That hotel I talked, the city bought the land because nobody else would. As well as the urban renewal. Our redevelopment agency bought it because it was upside down. The property was worthless because it cost more to tear down the old building than the property was ever worth. We took some risks, but here, maybe we just need to identify who the partners are that we need to sit down and say, here's what we need, and here's what our role is as a city. You may have to invest. That's something and that's the conversation you have to have with the taxpayers. We are going to make a contribution somehow to this project because X, Y, and Z.
It's one of our goals.
And that goal, and as part of that, we should also be thinking, if we bring these people out here, how do we keep them to at least eat a meal?
And
How
they
do
go
we-
home?
Yeah, how do they spend their money here and leave us some of their sales tax so that the next time when South Jordan talks about leakage to our area, it's true leakage, it's just not our residents no longer shopping in their area.
Right.
Right, so that's that kind of, so I think what we're hearing, and maybe it is that, it's the infrastructure, it's this, to get to
Basic
your first
service
point,
needs, yeah.
let's figure out, let's bring you a plan, that could be a short-term goal, we'll show you a plan, we'll say, okay, here's how we're doing it. It's the destination and the economic development. If those are the three things you want us to focus on right now, and maybe in infrastructure, I'm gonna say basic services. How do we provide those basics and how do we show you a plan how to do it? Law enforcement, all those. Then we can do that for a
Knock it off
couple.
and then we move on to another goal.
Yeah, cause that, showing you a plan and developing a plan and helping the council with the budget to see here's how you're gonna move through this plan, that should be fairly short term. Because we're already doing that, that's one of the things we're trying to put together in this budget process, you'll see, here's how we're gonna try and tackle that. So maybe we just start there and we can work on this destination piece.
And I think we're headed that way, and that wasn't to be
yeah.
critical, we're headed that way, and just,
The ball's rolling, it's just not.
yeah, it's just
I
now.
think all three pieces of that ball is rolling.
And I'm not saying, that's the thing, don't take this as, this isn't a change of direction, I think it's just putting it on paper and saying, let's set goals
Yeah,
with it.
measurable goals.
Sub-tactical stuff they're talking about.
Well, and I think where it's been derailed in the past is just like our conversation earlier about the automobile. We have a vision of what that should be, and that provides these things, these are all interconnected, right?
Yep.
But we get halfway, not even halfway, we get a toe into it and somebody's asking for something different, right? And we,
And that's gonna change through the process always.
and well, not just something different, but
Can't squirrel all the time.
yeah, but it's constantly swirling and we constantly go away from what that goal was,
The true intent.
right? Which kind of was the thrust of my point was that, look, why are we doing the automobile? What did we set out to do? They keep trying to draw us away from that. And so to your point for a plan, like that's I guess where I get kind of frustrated. I'm like, we've had this exact conversation countless times in the 6 years I've been in here. Countless times.
Right.
I'm like, why does it keep getting squirreled away from exactly what I just talked about?
Well, I
And
think
you can go back and look at almost like any meeting we've talked about economic development. I think I pointed to that map every time and said, look, we're in a cul-de-sac. Right? We're not a destination. We're not on the way to anywhere but where people live. And now that everything is entitled, like that's what we are. We have very little to work with other than 40 acres that needs to be programmable space. That will be a big draw. That will help with the commercial down the road, right? That's the vision. We need hotels there. We need over 20 fields for any grass space sport to have large competitions come here and people spend money and they want to stay close by. We don't want to drive all the way across town to have dinner and go to sleep. We want to be right there, right? Those all of those sorts of things. Recreation, what do we have? What are our advantages? What do we have that other cities don't have?
Let me bring up some
Proximity to the mountain, and it's not just our hillside right here. There's lots of recreation to open up in the mountain range. Talk to members of the county council who have that same vision, et cetera. There's a lot to unlock there, but if we build houses all the way around, we don't have good access, guess where they're gonna access it from? The other side, Saratoga and Eagle Mountain will get all of that money.
So,
we were short-sighted.
one thing that's different today than 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, leadership, direction, and the momentum forward. I think we've got leadership and passion in here on both sides, admin and council. And I think we've turned the corner, and I think that the citizens recognize that and see that. They're excited. I mean, we're getting invited out to schools, we're getting invited out to the sewer district, we're getting to Camp Williams. I mean, some of those are yearly annual things, but I think they see the potential of working with a city that actually functions.
Absolutely,
And it's on us
that's
to
kind of where I
stick
say
to
they're
it, yeah.
interconnected, right? So those things are great, and I did the same thing, and it quickly became where how come the street's still not fixed? How come the water pressure's still not there? How come there are, at the time it was still UPD, and how come I make a call and I don't see anybody for hours and hours, if at all? Right,
You have a good
so
response time,
absolutely we're making progress on all those things, but when you say we're lacking direction, give us some specifics. Tell me what, like,
Well, I think
not
we're
just
going there.
snap
I actually think this was helpful. I wanna make sure that the things I'm doing are what you really want. I don't wanna come in here and say, here's how I think you deal with your cap, and say, I don't want you to do that.
No,
You
for sure.
need to be going and doing this. So this has actually been very helpful. They're basics, and I would say, let's start there. Let's deal this
Then I
stuff.
can think about the others.
It's what you've got these, let's work on those. We'll come back, like I said, I think the infrastructure piece and the capital improvement plan, we'll put together the plan. It will be council's budgetary discipline that allows us to do it. Let me put it that way. We'll show you the plan, and as we go through it, if you all of a sudden go squirrel and say, let's go spend all the money over here, then the plan gets delayed.
Yeah, but you had that
It'll
key
be up on
point
you.
that you said, when we, months ago, you said, but there will be a tool that says, yeah, okay, we can move that here, but here's what you're doing to this.
Here's what you're giving up.
And that's just never been a tool that we
Well, something
have.
that reminds us in that discussion
Stay
that,
on
look,
course.
remember, here's what the plan is.
Yes.
Yes, this is what's being asked for these reasons, but here's what the plan is.
It's easy to squirrel if you can't be brought back to the original, yeah, but here's really the effect it will have.
And to squirrel on that part, what generally happens is that an item gets brought to us, and here we wanna change this for
In a
these
vacuum.
reasons, and
Yep.
here's why it makes sense in this vacuum. With the unintended consequences, it pulls away from all this stuff, and it's presented of, yep, we just need to do this and get it done, but it's contrary to the overall goal.
Yep.
So, I think I understand where you're coming from, we wanna reestablish those overall goals. I guess maybe that's the frustrating thing for us as we've talked about
You've done it time and time
so many times. So whatever those things are that you need to give us specifics. What are the specific things you want direction on? Because when you say what's the goals.
I think you hit it. So these are the things you want us to focus on. I think the infrastructure one will at least give you a plan. So in hearing, and for 22 years, I've been in, 23 now in local government, that fight over doing things in a vacuum, it's been everywhere. And we will do our best in that financial, so this is gonna require more out of staff when we write staff reports. When we write our financial analysis, we probably have to talk to finance and say, is there money and what are the trade-offs? What are the opportunity costs?
So
Because it could be, we're gonna rob, somebody said we robbed Peter to pay Paul, we didn't rob him, I mean, he was mugged. Bad. And Paul doesn't know where the money is because we gave it to somebody else as well. So it's that challenge, we have to be more clear with you on what those trade-offs are. Because it may be a policy decision for you to do that and delay projects, and that's fine. You won't hurt our feelings, but you just need to know
Opportunity cost.
those impacts when you're making decisions, so it's not in a vacuum.
Yeah,
It's
you
not
guys
fair to
did that, already, you gave a good example of that tonight in Blake's presentation, right? It was clear that this is where this money's gonna come from, and we traded 40-something units from this area. You're gonna take those now, you're trading those in now, understand that, you know what I mean? So those kind of information, I've never seen stuff like that before. So then it's easier for us to make decisions to say, and understand the true impact it has on our goals.
So we will do that, and sometimes, so, just to be clear, it'll be a project you love, and you're gonna see a recommendation from staff, but it'll also say, hey, you're gonna give these things up if you do it.
Mhm.
It's your decision to make, but you do need to make those with your eyes wide open and say, okay, if I do this, I can't do these 3 other things.
You know.
But if it's the highest priority, sometimes you get to that and you look, oh, well, you know what? This one's actually a higher priority, so I'm gonna switch it around. That's what we'll try and give you, so you can make that, but I'm not concerned about any of the destination one, I think that's a long-term goal, and I think we need to set up some very specific kind of steps to get us playing on that. And it is very expensive, so that's why it's long-term.
The nice thing though is that I feel confident that you have the expertise within your organization to help structure that, you know? I mean, I watch Wendy over Parks and I'm like, whenever somebody tells me, I'm like, yeah, call Wendy, cause she's a guru on that. You know what I mean? I just really believe that there are some expertise there that can help us get to those points
Yeah.
and make good plans.
To Teddy's point, right, that's, and to yours, I'll speak only for myself. That's one of the major reasons that you're here.
Yeah.
Is we want you to make sure we stay on course. That, we're not here every day, right? We're looking at it from this perspective, and then we bring, and then we see these things in a vacuum, right? At least from my perspective, your job is to make sure we stay on course when these things are brought in.
Or else if we're gonna divert course, so we do it, no, eyes wide
Knowingly,
open.
right, you make that decision.
Yep.
So we'll do is we'll spend a little bit of time making these three things sound a little prettier. Just so if we meet with somebody, it's not like chicken scratch here, it's like, yeah, this is what we're doing.
Chickens.
So let's move down that, I feel like,
Well, Wendy,
That's
just real
enough.
fast, I don't wanna belabor, I wanna wrap this up, but I don't think we have to make this expensive when we talk about a destination. They're there, like Jared said, we've got access to the trail, it's just, maybe we're marketing that opportunity, maybe we're,
Yeah, we're
you know,
looking
the
for
juniper,
public-private
like, we're
partnerships.
headed there.
Right.
right
It's
now,
just, so,
Tony's
and it's
gonna do
county
one.
stuff,
Are we
it's
doing
working
those
with.
trailheads with the idea of having events there, right? Does that make sense for this trailhead to be bigger because it has access, right?
Juniper, yes.
That brings people by those commercial areas,
Like
just those kinds of
Well,
things that
even
goes into a
the
plan.
programmable spot, we can look at public-private partnerships to bring that kind of stuff in. If we can show them that our community is focused on recreation and those types of things, this is an area that people will come because of that.
So we're having conversations with Rio Tinto we're having, like, this is what we envision for this space, so. You know, these things-
has anybody been to Charlotte, North Carolina?
Yep.
Okay, Charlotte, North Carolina was a textile town. That's all they were.
They are a banking center now.
You know how they became a banking center? They just said they were. They faked it, like,
Yep.
it's the best example.
Sounds like
Create a brochure.
They just went out there, they said, we're a banking center, I think they got US Bank or Bank of America, one of those said, yeah, you know, it's not a bad spot. They pulled the trigger, and the next thing you know, they've got all these banks. You walk through their downtown.
Simply because the others wanted to be around.
The others.
Exactly. They just, I always, we sat through the presentation, they said, we kind
Oh,
of
the
faked
new
it
one?
till we made it.
Deloitte.
They have this old part of town that you go through. I'll say old, you walk through, it's like, wow, this is really cool. And then you look back on Google Earth, and the old stuff that was there, they raised it, knocked it all down, built buildings to look old so that you had this sense. And I'm thinking, okay, it's a total Potemkin town, but man, they figured out how to do that. So if we're gonna be a destination, and we're saying right now we're not,
We get them.
let's figure out how to do it.
Deloitte
just
Hansen had a
go out there and do
conversation with us one time exactly that, remember we were doing tour of Utah? He goes, because you're gonna say you are and then you do it. Call yourself that and do it.
Just do it, and you keep talking about it, eventually people start to think, oh, that's where, right now, if you say, where do you go mountain biking, everybody's gonna say Corner Canyon.
Yep.
So our
We
goal,
have to be that
when the
dude.
county builds this
Somehow.
1,200 or 1,500
We're gonna have
parking
all this
space
stuff.
facility,
They're talking about
Yeah.
Hammond.
we want it to be, well, where do you go right? Oh, you go to Harriman, well, you could go to Corner Canyon, but you go Harriman first, and it's like, oh, now you can go with Draper if you want.
So how do we get there? How do we get there? Yep.
We just have to
Monorail.
get there.
We're going monorail. Get on the bus.
That would be cool
I'm
too.
driving there.
So I'll sell you one.
I got, that's very helpful.
Okay,
No, that's awesome.
let's wrap this up. Good? Clear as mud still?
No, it's actually,
He's got some
Better
stuff,
than mine.
he's got some stuff on
it's,
paper.
it's Utah
I'll sleep
Lake
a little,
right now,
I'll
so
sleep a
we're
little
good.
bit better tonight, so not great, but not late. Okay, I think we're done. Is that it? Thank you, everybody, for your time tonight. Just look for a motion to close then.
Thanks for adjusting the schedule to accommodate my whim.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Steve, second by Sherry, all in favor? Thank you, everybody. Thank you all.
So, what on this conference?
I'm gonna
I'm just
work-
curious, I'll be here because she's doing a breakfast
You want me